What do you do? You're not an engineer. You're not a designer. You can't put a hammer to a nail. I built the circuit board. The graphical interface was stolen. So how come 10 times in a day, I read Steve Jobs as a genius? What do you do?
Musicians play their instruments. I play the orchestra.
This might sound strange, but have you ever considered yourself to be the person who either plays the instrument or the orchestra? One of the things I find fascinating are people who know how to motivate others to do great things, and the way they gather a group of people from different backgrounds and have them march towards a common goal would seem like an impossible challenge, some would say. And yet, if I probably know my history as much as you do, you probably know there are people who actually did accomplish those type of challenges and actually changed the world because of it. For instance, you're aware of how around 400 BC, Plato's influence managed to win the hearts of many because of the way he challenged the common man way of thinking back then. And thanks to Plato, it influenced others to follow his way of thinking up to this very day. But this could also be used in a negative light too, because you have people like Adolf Hitler who managed to influence a huge part of the world because of his ideals, but not in a way this technique should have been used. But I think it's better if we start with Steve Jobs to cover the main theme of this book. Because if you look into Steve Jobs' life, you'll see that he was just a man no different than you or me. And despite some of his negative qualities, he actually knew how to motivate other people to create the products he always envisioned. And even when people constantly declare what he said was impossible to create, he would speak to them in a way that made them push past their own limits and get it done. And I know it may sound simple, but the way you inspire other people to take action can actually benefit you, whether you own a business, you're trying to sell a product, or you just want someone to follow your ideas and then act on them on your behalf. Back when Alexander the Great took the throne, he had to use his ability to influence others so he could use that power to unite the people of Greece before it tore itself apart in a civil war. So you can see just how powerful the power of influencing other people can be once you understand the way it works. And this skill, to be an inspiration upon others, is known as the 8th habit that Stephen Covey goes over in his book. It's when you have the mindset to constantly look for the potential in yourself and other people to build your own foundation or dream. And the first point we're going to take a look into is known as the great achiever finds and uses their own voice. Now I think it's a great idea if we use Steve Jobs as an example for this point. Mainly because I'm currently reading his biography, but also because he really relates to this topic too. You see, throughout Steve Jobs' life, he constantly found ways to make a profit based on products his friends would make. Whether it was a blue box that allowed people to make long-distance phone calls for free, or an animation studio he led named Pixar, he always found a way to use his ability to sell something he became a part of. You see, despite other hobbies that caught Steve Jobs' eye throughout his entire life, the one thing he realized he was good at was knowing how to profit based on an idea he thought about. You see, before we could gain an understanding of what you naturally like doing or what you're talented at, you need to know what's naturally attractive upon your eyes. And one of the best ways to find what you're talented at or what you enjoy doing is to find someone else you admire. It should be someone you can imagine yourself being in some way or another. And that person doesn't even have to live the lifestyle you want or desire, but they should carry the mentality that you admire. Let me give you an example. Steve Jobs was inspired by his father, who introduced him to the world of engineering and design, and he installed in him the many principles of good design that actually helped him create Apple products in the future. Steve Jobs may have not cared about becoming a car mechanic like his father, but he took the concept of designing different objects and putting them together to create something new and great. He would then combine that passion with his love of electronics that would eventually lead him to build Apple products. And this is how you can become inspired by ideas that people live by too. After all, Ronda Rousey was inspired by a quote that Bruce Lee said, which was, "I'm not in the world to live up to your expectations, and you're not in the world to live up to mine." And as you can see, it doesn't take much to truly motivate someone to change the world. But based upon any idea that relates to you the most, you still need to increase your knowledge on it if you want to become great at it. Even after Steve Jobs discovered his passion of electronics and technology, he continued reading about any subject that related to both of them. And after dropping out of college, he still continued expanding his knowledge upon any subject relating to technology or business. So you can see just how part of your journey is just examining your natural talents, what you love to do, and what naturally interests you the most. You may not like the idea of being a doctor, but there might be a doctor out there who you do admire because of his ability to find the sources behind people's sickness. You can then take the concept of always searching for the main problems behind big issues that happen in the world and then finding ways to cure them. And the more you listen to what you naturally love doing, you're going to see that it's going to be easier to stay on that path. And part of that path is never allowing your past or your current circumstances determine your future. You see, after Steve Jobs left his own company, he didn't let that stop him from having fun with his talent to sell his dreams. Instead, he formed another company using his natural talents and made that company into a success. I think it's fair to say you always have a choice. You can either give up when things go bad, or you can learn to see the new opportunities that's presented for you. For Steve Jobs, after he was booted from Apple, he saw that as a new opportunity to start other ideas he had in his head but couldn't do back when he was at Apple. Now the second point we're going to cover is your ability to inspire others to find their voice. Finding your own voice isn't where it ends for you. It's not even close. In fact, it's just the beginning for you. Don't worry, let me explain. Although Jobs didn't have the best relationship with his co-workers, he needed them more than anybody else in the company to create the ideas he drafted up for them, and to get his employees and those he worked with to look past his rude behavior. He would convince them that anything was possible if they looked at it differently. He would say things like, "If you could save a person's life, can you make this computer boot up 10 seconds faster?" And by giving his small team perspectives like those to make his products, he led them to design the original Macintosh. Jobs' slogan was to make it insanely great, never even referring to profit. He even said, "Don't worry about price, just specify the computer's abilities." Steve Jobs' ability to push people to do the impossible is still admired today because he made his colleagues stop focusing on ways they can sell their products to make maximum profit and rather how they can revolutionize the world. And after you find your voice, this is when you want to inspire others to do the same, because that's the main role of leadership, your ability to let others see their own potential. Great leaders inspire people by placing a one-voice idea into their heads. They create a shared vision. And in a way, not only did Steve Jobs create a one-voice idea for his company to follow, he placed it into our heads too. He gave us the idea of paying for an iPod or iPhone because something about it screamed inspiration and genius. There was a strange uniqueness about it, and in a way, it brought us together to do things we never thought we would. I don't care whether you want to own a company, influence other people, or get people to buy whatever you're selling. Because none of that is actually going to matter, because you'll never get far if you can't find a united purpose that will unite people, a diverse group of people in that fact, together. And organizations that have great leaders like Steve Jobs give people inspiration to let them believe that they can make a difference in this world. Overall, the point this book makes is to first find your inspiration through someone you admire, and then once you find your own voice, help others find their own voice too. That way, you can create a united purpose and get people to follow your dreams and will. And that's The 8th Habit by Stephen Covey. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that video. If you have any ideas based on a video you'd like to see in the future, just leave a comment below. Alright guys, I hope you have a great day and peace!